I'm Shayda, and in today's tutorial we're going to tackle pencil sketching and shading, and we're really going to focus on that shading part. I'll be drawing from a still life object, so go ahead and grab a piece of fruit or a flower or one of your kids' toys and let's get started. So the supplies for sketching are very simple, but they're very specific. You want to start with good quality, heavy paper. This Robert Bateman sketchbook is 110 pound, and that's really good. So a nice, thick, quality paper is going to be really helpful. Now, pencils are a very big subject, but just the crash course is that pencils are categorized in either H with an H or a B. Anything marked with an H is going to be a harder pencil, so 9H would be very hard, 2H fairly hard. And then B, anything marked with a B is quite a soft pencil, so 9B very, very soft, very dark, and 2B fairly soft. So H pencils would be good for more like architectural drawings, whereas the B pencils are great for getting that nice sketchy look. Now, I'm a big believer that you don't need a huge set of pencils. I like to use an HB, which is right in the middle, for doing my contour drawing, which is a line drawing, and then I use a 2B to do my shading. Now, you'll also want a good eraser, and I use a little gum eraser. Gum erasers are very soft, so you're not in danger of creasing your page. And then having a clean, dry paintbrush handy is paramount, because you won't be wiping the page with your hands. And that brings me to my next point, which is that your hands, even if they're clean, are always going to have a little bit of oil in them, so you don't want to be wiping at that page. You also don't want to blow on it because you might spit. Anyone who sketches knows what I'm talking about. So do have a nice paintbrush for wiping away those eraser shavings, and then as well a piece of paper to make sure that you're not touching the page too much. Having a scrap piece of paper there is really beneficial, and this just means that you won't sort of have your hand sitting on top of a bit of the sketch that you've already worked on, because like I said, that could leave a little bit of oiliness on your nice clean paper. So that's it for the supplies. Good quality paper, a little bit of scrap paper, an eraser, and a clean paintbrush. And then I'm a big believer that you don't need a ton of pencils. If you're just starting, get yourself an HB and a 2B or a 3B. HB is for the contour drawing, and then the 2B, you can pretty much do all your shading with that one pencil. And then you'll need something to draw, and today I'm going to draw an apple core. It's just something simple, seasonal. I'm just going to prop it up there so that you can kind of see the angle that I'm drawing from, and I'm just going to start. So I'm using my HB pencil to sketch out the initial contour drawing of the apple. So I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking about what that apple is shaped like, but I'm also aware that I'm the only one who's going to see this apple. So this is not a portrait of this certain apple. This is just a drawing of an apple. So although I am trying to make it look like this one, it doesn't need to be exact. I'm not going to worry about every little line of the core being just so. So I'm just trying to do a practice sketch of an apple core here. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just not trying really, really hard to get it perfect. I'm just trying to sort of get that contour drawing done so that I can begin working on my shading. Now I've switched pencils, so I'm switching to the 2B, and I'm going to start in an area of the apple that is a little darker. I don't want to start with a really light area. The light shading is always more difficult, at least for me, than the darker shading. And to shade, it's hard to describe the act of shading. It's something you need to practice, but I'm just going around in a tiny, delicate, circular motion. And I'm doing these little tiny circles with very light pressure. That's how I shade. There's many different methods you can work through when it comes to shading. This is my method, and it's one that works really well for me, and it's one that I think has a really nice realistic look. Now here's another tip. Your pencil, when it's sharp, can be not so great for shading. So sometimes it's nice to take a piece of scrap paper and just wear down that lead a little bit. And then you can see that lead's a little flatter on one side, and that's going to make it a lot easier for me to to do a nice fine, light, delicate shading. And here you can see, or I hope you can see, the action of and the movement of my hand as I do that very light pressure sort of circular motion. There is something, I must admit, there's something a little mystical about the process of sketching. I find it a little bit difficult to teach. What I would recommend is drawing a bar on a piece of your sketchbook paper and trying to shade that bar from very dark to very light. And just practice. What technique do you like? What does your hand sort of naturally do? But practice really does make perfect in this case. It's just something that your hand is going to have to learn, sort of the feel of the pencil in your hand, and eventually you'll have a real memory in your arm for how much pressure you need to apply to the page. And once you have practiced this and gotten a knack for it, it really is a wonderful, relaxing process. Now, I'll apologize here. I did try to do a top-down camera angle for you guys, and it backfired a little in that sometimes my hand is kind of in front of what I'm doing, so I do apologize for that, but I hope that you can still kind of get the gist of what's going on here. Another tip that I'd like to mention is that very rarely when I'm sketching do I do just a hard line. So if you notice when I started, I did that initial contour drawing very, very lightly. I don't want any really hard lines. You want things to be very blended and smooth. I think that's something that people sometimes miss, and they wonder why their drawing or their sketching isn't quite as sophisticated as they want, and I often find it's because their lines are too hard. So go very, very light with any lines, and if you do have a line like along the edge of the peel here where the apple is red, I do have a sharp line, but anywhere where I draw a line, I'm also shading very darkly right beside the line so that the lines never stand out. I hope that makes sense. So anywhere you've got a line, you're going to shade around it so that there are no lines that sort of stand alone. And I think that really helps with the realism and the sophistication of the sketch. One last thing that I want to talk about as I sort of approach the end of the sketch is that I don't use blending sticks. Now, blending sticks are just tightly rolled paper that you can use for blending your pencil lead once it's on the page, or the graphite once it's on the page. And that's just really a personal preference. I believe that I have the ability to create the sketch without sort of going and using that other tool. So I like having the control that doing it with the pencil gives me, but totally another supply that you might employ that you might really enjoy. So let me know in the comments what you think of blending sticks if you're a sketch artist. And I also want to mention that I like to apply a bit of sketchy pressure to almost all of the sketch. So only the most highlighted areas I've left white. So areas that are very, very light, I've still gone in with a little bit of shading, just the lightest bit of shading, and I think that helps with the realism of the sketch as well. Thank you guys so much for watching today. If you enjoyed seeing this pencil sketch tutorial, let me know and we'll do some more of them.